Is a Corvette the best drift car that money can buy right now? Derek thinks so.
Right now it is, yes.
So not too long ago, Corvettes were super stupid expensive, and people thought you were dumb for drifting them. But now they're everywhere at the track when you're at a drift event. This is Derek.
Long story short, when I got this car, I was a dealer. I had a car lot and everything before COVID. I was able to buy this car for $5,700, which is a deal. The dealer that had it didn't want to put no money into it to make it good enough to sell. It was perfect for what I needed. So I bought the car. I sold my Mustang that I was drifting. And I basically put a FDF mini kit on the front with stock, leaf spring stock, everything, and the car ripped. These cars, you basically don't need a whole lot to make these cars good, because right out of the box, they're good cars. They just do not have no angle stock.
See, it's crazy is like this car not too long ago, because this is what, is this C5 or C6?
C5.
C5, okay, so C5 Corvettes, not too long ago, something like this was like $10,000 plus, even for like a salvage title. And drifting, a lot of people are just like, they buy the cheapest thing they can to thrash on it. And now things are changing a little bit. Like, it's interesting, like the drift community used to be all about like beater banger cars or whatever. You didn't feel bad beating it up. You buy the cheapest thing you could. Like, that's why AE86s were so good for drifting for a while, is because they were cheap. So buying like, even this, like a $6,000 essentially Corvette, like mind-blowing not too long ago, but now, like $5,000, $6,000, that's what you're looking to spend to get into like a good drift car. Corvette, 350Z, G35, those are all gonna run you about $5,000 to $6,000, and it'll be a good basic setup for drifting. Like this right here, this is the main reason I think Corvettes have done so well in drifting. They come stock with an LS. This is the engine everybody swaps into everything. But they're not, you know, they're more built for like road racing. You can see like stock ground clearance is not much. Obviously this is on some aftermarket suspension, but there's not a whole lot there.
And honestly, the way I got it set up, I don't go for super slam. Like honestly, it's sitting at the factory ride height. All the control arms, a lot of people want to slam their cars and have terrible geometry. So on this car, I kept it at a stock ride height. All my control arms are nice and flat. Like honestly, like the front, they call that the air dam. That helps push air into the radiator.
Yeah.
You know, it's sitting about where it would on a factory C5.
Huh. You've got FDF angle kit on it.
FDF mini kit with FDF lower control arms and silver coilovers.
Okay.
But the rest, everything else is factory.
Giant radiator.
Yes, that's actually an Eastwood radiator. Eastwood that makes fabrication tools.
Yeah.
They have their own line of radiators.
Oh,
it's
cool.
actually called a tri-flow, so it flows through the radiator 3 times before it actually comes out. And I've had pretty good success. And actually the fan shroud that's on it, it doesn't even bolt to it. It just kind of like snaps on. So the fan shroud just snaps right onto the radiator, and they sell this fan kit. I think I have about $400 in this whole radiator set up, and it works flawless.
So radiator, it's got a little intake on it. FDF mini kit with FDF lower control arms, silvers, coilovers, and then are you still leaf spring in the rear?
Nope, it's got silver coilovers in the rear.
Okay.
And I got FDF upper control arms, because the way you adjust the camber on these cars is on the lower control arm.
Yeah.
So essentially, if I go out there and dirt drop, my alignment's screwed. So what I got is I got the bottom control arm locked out, and FDF sells an upper control arm, and it's like I can adjust it on the car. So right now I'm running about a degree of positive camber. That way when the car, because these cars squat super hard. So when this car squats, it takes the lean out, and you can see these tires here. I used to wear the inside of the tire super hard after putting that FDF lower or uppers on. This one could take a little more work. I need to add a little more positive camber to this one. As far as that one goes, that's the driver's side. It's wearing pretty well even.
Yeah.
But before I was eating up, I had tires doing this with like good tread here before.
Yeah.
So throwing those on and being able to keep my alignment dialed in has made a huge difference.
Huh.
But honestly, straight out of the box, you could buy one of these and put a mini FDF mini kit that's like $350 and take this car out and rip it with the factory leaf springs. These cars just rip out of the box. Like you said, they're made for road racing. They're super rigid cars. So there's not a whole lot of body roll or anything like that.
So the question is, are these the best drift cars that you can buy now?
Yes.
Derek says yes, but on Drift Week 5, the cars that had the most issues were the Corvettes. Several blown engines on Drift Week.
See, one of my things is, I've run an oil cooler now because my oil temps would get 300, 320. So now they stay around 180 to 200 with a big oil cooler. And another thing with these cars, run them 1 extra quart over on oil. That's all it takes. I've blown a couple of motors, but it wasn't related to drifting. I always run 1 quart extra on all my cars.
To keep a Corvette reliable for drifting, big radiator, big oil cooler, run a little bit more, a quart oil over, which is pretty common for drift cars. And then you don't really have to mess with the engine. And that's, I think, the main benefit is that in a Corvette, you don't have to touch the powertrain. You just leave it stock pretty much. Sure, you can toss an intake and exhaust on it, but...
So basically, this engine is 100% stock with a Texas Speed Bald Eagle NA cam for the LS1. It makes 392 horsepower. It's not super powerful, but it's like on the edge of being great. It will go through tires if you're a little heavy on that foot.
392 horsepower, no big deal. Almost 400 horsepower.
Well, everybody these days in drift cars wants 1,000 plus.
Derek has offered to let me drive it, so we're gonna see what this Corvette thing is all about, and really if it is everything people make it out to be. So Derek's a little taller than me, so the seating position is a little funny, but we'll give it a go. The seat's bolted to the floor. I'm borrowing a car. So you said first gear.
First gear is what I use.
All right, we'll give it a go. I don't like this first corner, so we're gonna grip the first corner here because that scares me. Whoa! Dude, this power is absolutely insane. So you just put your foot down and it goes. I'm over here like clutch kicking and doing my thing, and I'm like, why am I doing that? That's wild. Now I get why everybody buys these. This is really cool.
You can see the hype a little bit.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, exactly. I understand the hype. This is really nice. It's weird leaving it in first gear and drifting in first gear, but I know that like Corvettes usually have pretty tall gearing just because, well, they're more like grand touring road race kind of cars, so that's just what they do. All right, we'll see if we can step it up a little bit. Now that I understand the car a little bit, I've driven a lap, I get it. But like just like that, I was able to hop in a car that I'm unfamiliar with and essentially link the track. Like, this is so easy. I remember I was talking to Luke Fink, right? So Luke Fink is an Australian drifter. He drifts in like D1 NZ.
Super aggressive driver.
Yeah, super aggressive driver, super awesome driver. And he's an 8.6 driver, right? So that's what he comes from. And it was funny, I remember him telling me that Corvettes, they're like a bigger version of an 8.6. Like, very similar driving style, very similar driving feel. And I gotta be honest, it really is very similar. Like, the power to weight is very similar, I feel like, because Corvettes are a little heavier than an 8.6, but this drives really well, really easy. On an 8.6 you typically dial out grip a lot, so that way you can, because you're driving with low power or whatever. On this, you don't have to dial out grip, but you drive it very, very similar, I feel like. Yeah, at an 8.6, you really got to clutch kick a bunch. On my car, I don't have to clutch kick as much because it's supercharged beams. And this just feels like really good. It really is. Like, Derek says it's a cheater car. No, I don't know if I call it a cheater car, but like I understand now why people buy a car like this, because I mean, you can buy a Corvette with working air conditioning, stock. Hi, Anthony. It feels like a big 8.6, to be honest.
Does it?
Yeah. Like the steering and the suspension feels very similar, except it's power steering, not manual steering. But it reacts very similar to my car. Like when I clutch in to let it grip up, it reacts very similar. The only thing that's different, I would say, is how the car acts when I grab the handbrake. My car is set up so the handbrake scrub speed doesn't add angle. Like it drags the car. Whereas a lot of other cars, you snatch that handbrake and you're just you're going out. So so it's a little different in that. But other than that, it's pretty good. When you first get into drifting, you street drive your car, right? Yeah. And so like a Corvette, they're new enough, and most of the people who have owned Corvettes didn't like tear them apart to mod them, right? So like a lot of 240s or Miatas or 86s, people, the first thing they do is they're like, this air conditioning, yank, they rip all the AC stuff out, gotta make us, you know, gotta cut down curb weight as much as possible. But a lot of Corvettes are in pretty decent condition, even like salvage tile race cars. So you buy a Corvette, you can have air conditioning, all the bells and whistles you want, and it's got enough power that you don't necessarily have to worry about, you know, yanking stuff out for weight reduction. And on top of that, it's a hatchback. You can stuff a set of wheels and tires back there, all your tools, you got so much room. These make just such good all-around cars because you got the comfort, pop-ups are where it's at. That's the best thing about C5s. I'm a little biased though, because, you know, obviously 8.6. Still a little cautious of this. All right, Derek's gonna show me how it's done in his Corvette now. So, is a Corvette the best drift car that money can buy right now? Derek thinks so.
Right now, it is, yes.
I think that this is definitely on the top of the list, and here's why. As you can see, I drove it completely different than Derek. Luke Fink, I think, was right that you can drive this like an 8.6, but they also have the power to drive it like something completely different. You can be aggressive, or you can be a little more tentative with it. You can drive it wide open throttle, or you can drive it part throttle. Either way, you can do both. You don't have to worry about, like, some cars when you get them set up, you have to get a bunch of like droop in the rear to get the car to grip up. This, it doesn't really move, the suspension doesn't move a whole ton, and it's got good grip. It's got great power, and obviously there's a little more power than stock, but honestly, like, that was so easy to drive. To get in a car that I've never driven before, never even ridden in, and be able to link the track essentially.
And honestly, it probably makes about 60 more horsepower than it did stock. So it's not a big gain in power, but the car's just dialed.
And it makes good power throughout the whole power band. It's not like a small section of it, right? It's good mid-range power, which is really what you want for drifting. I approve.